Happy New Year!
Happy New Year, guys. It's actually New Year's Eve right now.
So, welcome to 2022. We are so excited for what is to come in the new year. But before we, dive into everything that's coming for 2022, we want to wrap up 2021.
Yeah, it was a big year. We did, like if we're looking back and we were starting to look through some previous footage and stuff, and it's just amazing how much we did this year. And when we think back to where we were like a year ago, we weren't even talking about a van. And that seems like 2 years ago at least. So we've done a lot.
I know. Good. We joked as the clock struck midnight on 2020 and said, it's going to just switch over and the pandemic's just going to disappear into 2021.
Yeah.
But we knew that wasn't going to be the case. And we weren't sure, was international travel going to be allowed? What was travel going to look like for us? So we kind of just started to be like, where can we go? What can we do? And I was sitting in my office in January just browsing, as I do when I'm bored. And I was looking at, do we get a cottage for a fun project and gut it and renovate it? Do we gut our RV and try to remodel it so that it works a little bit better for what we're looking for? And then I kind of consistently came back to this idea of building a van. So I remember Chris came home one night, I cooked him a really nice dinner, I gave him some beer, and I sat him down and I showed him this video I had found of a couple that was selling their, they had a professionally made van and they had it up for sale. So I showed them the video and I said, what do you think? I remember I pitched the idea to Chris and I think you thought I had lost my mind.
Yeah, I think I was looking at the sheer amount of work involved in actually, building cabinets and the electrical and everything, and just thinking Nicole, I think you're underestimating the amount of work involved to get something like this done. So, which I was not, I was opposed to the idea for a while anyways, even at the beginning of the year. But somewhere that turned over.
Well, you gave me 8 weeks to get my financials together, to kind of get a plan to show you what a build would look like. And I think after watching a few YouTube build series in about the span of 1 or 2 weeks, we had ordered the van.
Yeah, a week or so later, it was she convinced me and we figured we'd give it a try. So I guess that kind of leads into the first part here, is actually when we actually went and got the van, right? I think I've heard the we bought a van opening title so many times this year. So
we bought a van.
But it was a year ago right now. We weren't even talking about the van really, and we weren't really doing anything on YouTube, and so a lot has changed in the year, that's for sure.
But I remember pulling into the Mercedes dealership and seeing this van, and it was a lot taller than the rest of the vans on the lot. And we didn't realize that the 4x4 is actually 4 inches lifted higher than your standard 170.
Which is awesome, because we were thinking we want to put big tires. We wanted this thing to sit nice and tall, and it's nice that we didn't have to do any of that aftermarket. It actually sits really nice just right from the factory. So. And
it was so good. But I remember our very first week, we went to Home Depot, and I cannot tell you how many times we went to Home Depot over the last year. But we tried to lay the floor runners, and the PL glue just wouldn't adhere.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing, is we were trying to start to build this thing in February, and the temperatures were minus 20 Celsius, minus 30 Celsius some days, and we were looking at these the things of glue, and it says recommended adhering is between 2 degrees and 30 degrees. So we're okay, space heaters, let's see if we can do this.
So we ran 3 space heaters 24/7 until the floor was set and we were ready to move on from the floor. But I think that was a consistent question. I think at the first week or so, we were like, is this floor going to set?
First few weeks, it was all about, will the glue work? Do we have enough glue? We're running out of glue. So I guess kind of within those first few weeks when we were waiting on the van to arrive and stuff, we were starting to do all of our research about, how are we going to lay this out? Because we want to make sure that we know exactly what we're going to do to this van by the time it shows up, so we can just get started with it. And I know we did tons of research. We even had it our front living room basically had the entire van taped out on the floor so we could play around with floor plans.
I think one of the biggest challenges that we faced though was the electrical, and I'm so proud of you for taking on that challenge and figuring out what the heck to do, because you still talk about it and my brain hurts. I honestly I don't understand it, But when I lay in bed, like in the bed at night and like we can turn the lights on, I just like,
everything just works.
It just works.
And I think my first approach to that was like going online, and there were some other people that have built vans that created like calculation sheets and guides that could allow you to go ahead and think, okay, well, what are all the things that you want to put in the van? What's all the electronics that you want to install? And then figure out what the wattage is from all that, so you can decide how many batteries do you need, how much solar do you need, and all of that. And then, so I started doing that, getting a pretty good idea of what we needed. And then I was doing some research and came across Nomadic Cooling in this case, actually, and they are a vendor for a lot of Victron products, and they had a great video that kind of showed an all-in-one van system. And I worked with them to not really just get that exact system, but worked with them to figure out what exactly we needed, and then had them supply almost all of the electrical components to me. And that way I had a direct person to go to kind of like bounce ideas off of, or understand how everything needs to work together. So I think that gave me a lot of confidence, not like making sure that because the electrical was a huge component of the cost of the van because of how big of a system we were putting in there. We wanted it really to last off grid and everything and really work well. So that gave me the confidence that we were making the right choice when we were buying all of that stuff. And again, from an electrical standpoint, there's pretty much nothing that I would change. It's worked out so well for us this year. The electrical might be a little bit of a mess from a wiring standpoint, but that's something that I'm planning on still cleaning up in the spring here. So.
And I do know that once we are fully done our electrical, we are going to do a walkthrough of our entire electrical system so that you can really get a better understanding of like what Chris has done and what it is like powering and just everything that it can do. Because I know we get a lot of questions about it, and we're not fully done yet because we've got to wire up a bit more. But once we're there, and then clean up.
And if you do have specific questions on electrical, leave the comments down below, because then we can go and build that into that video and make sure we're really addressing what you guys want to hear.
Who knew building a van in the dead of Canadian winter was going to be this big of a challenge?
Yeah, there were certain things that we could do in our driveway, even with the cold, just with big jackets on and stuff. But then once we got to a point of having to go and do things like cutting into the van, that requires sealant and everything. We didn't want to take any risk of having any kind of leaks.
No.
We cut a lot of holes in the van, and I can say to this point, we still haven't had a single drop of water come in through any of those holes. So obviously we did a good job with enough of the sealant and everything, but it was a lifesaver to be able to go and put the van in a heated garage through one of our family friends. Thanks so much, Adam and Debbie, for letting us use your garage. That would have, if we weren't able to do that, it would have put us months behind.
The first hole in the van was our windows, which definitely was a little scary, but we put the 2 bunk windows in, and then I think the same week we installed the fan.
Yep, we got the fan in there, and then not too much longer later was the air conditioner.
Thank goodness for Adam's winch system to put that air conditioner up, because that air conditioner is so heavy that the two of us would not have been able to go up a ladder.
Too big and awkward to try to like manhandle up and then lay it down without scratching the top of the van. So that winch was great.
Yeah.
Being able to set it down there nice and carefully. So no, it was good. The next one up, which the next big component we did while we were in that heated garage, was installing the Espar heater, which right now is being really useful because it's like -5 degrees out. It's going to be going to like -30 degrees Celsius at some point, and it's the Espar diesel heater. Probably one of my least favorite parts of the install, I'd say.
I thought you were gonna throw that thing out the door.
I just found it's the Espar, is that the
D2?
brand?
Yeah.
D2 or whatever. It's probably one of the most common ones that are installed in these vans and stuff, and it's a great heater. It's got a nice thermostat. It seems to be working flawlessly now. But the instructions I had a hard time. Like, it seems like there's so many extra wires that comes with those things, and it depends on how you're installing them, and you don't need to use all the wires. And if you look at all the YouTube videos, it seems like over the years the wire colors have changed. So if you're watching another tutorial, they might have different wiring harnesses than you need. So it was a frustrating thing. I remember I got it installed backwards, and then I had to undo it all and turn it around. So it was. Yeah, that was an interesting part of the build, but
when it turned on, it was.
And it works so well. Like, since we've installed it, haven't had a single problem with it.
So after we finally got all of the major components installed, all the holes cut in the van, the air conditioner was in, the heater was done, it was time for spray foam.
And that was something that some people would do themselves. I know we were kind of bouncing the idea, looking online, you can buy spray foam kits, but then we really wanted it just to be done well and right. And I know it's a very messy process, and honestly we had to do the cleanup on it, like scraping. He did a great job cleaning up after he was done, but it was still a messy process even after the fact. I can't even imagine having to put one of those big suits on and it being in there spraying. I'm glad someone else just took care of that.
And honestly, it cost us less than $1,000 to get done. So for the time, and he did it in like 2 hours, so like we would it would have taken us a few days probably just to like figure out how to use the gun and everything. So
yeah, we probably would have wasted a ton of material and ended up spending just as much money.
After the spray foam finally started to become like the aesthetic stuff, we always felt like we were getting places, but you don't really start to see a huge change until the walls went in.
Yeah, because like up until that point, it's just a wiring mess. Wires hanging down everywhere, pot light wires everywhere. Yeah, so once the walls started going in, it's like, oh, this is starting to feel like a little bit like a home. So.
Yeah, and we had a few fails with the walls, like multiple fails with the walls. We used tongue and groove pine from Home Depot, the knotty pine. And I saw on a few YouTube channels, people pre-painted them. So I thought, while Chris was at work, I would paint the pine. And then we went to go put it up into the ceilings. And the tongue and groove didn't fit into each other. It was such like a tight fit before the paint went on that with the paint on, it just didn't work. So we threw out like 4 packs of painted pine.
Yeah, stuff that we were very carefully painting.
I had like sanded.
It just wouldn't go together.
No. So we just put up the pine as is before painting it, and then we were going to paint it once it was all up in the walls. So we did that. We painted. We thought everything went smoothly.
And then once we started looking at it from different angles, you could see like a lot of imperfections in the way that we painted, and rough spots, I think, from some of the knotty parts where it just looked really rough and didn't look like a nice finished product. So
we decided to go get a belt sander, and we sanded down all of our walls to go back to the wood. We still see imperfections, but the imperfections are actually from the belt sander more than anything else.
Yeah, because we were kind of really digging into the wood as we were sanding it down and stuff, so you can kind of see a little bit of that. But
so if we really wanted to, we should have just put up all new tongue and groove and just started fresh instead of like belt sanding. It actually probably would have saved us time, because the amount of time we were in there sanding the walls back down.
Yeah, like in the muscle aches of trying to hold this belt sander up on the wall. And we even like tore down the entire roof because we started sanding the roof. It was just way too much work to hold a belt sander up like that.
I physically wasn't tall enough, and I'm a tall person, just to like get the sheer power to push up onto the roof to get the paint off, and like your shoulders were dying. Yeah. So we said, heck with the roof, pulled the roof down, and we honestly should have just done it to all of the walls, but you live and you learn. After the walls went up and we were done painting round 1 and round 2, we managed to also put in the laminate fake hardwood flooring.
Yeah, we went with the laminate because it's a nice durable flooring, because we knew we were also going to be tracking in and out of here from the outside, and it would probably be it would be better because the van's going to be going through very cold temperatures and hot temperatures, temperature changes and such, so it definitely has held up pretty well. And
I remember when like the walls and the floor were in, it finally started to feel like something was happening.
Yeah, and it wasn't like constantly a mess. It felt fairly clean because it's nice clean wood, with clean floor, and it was good.
And then got to be the exciting part. We started to build all the furniture.
Yeah.
Kitchen went in, the seats started to go in, the bed was framed.
And I think for every piece of furniture we put in there, you decided that you were not sure you were happy with that going into the van, because it was starting to feel a little bit smaller as you put the bed in. All of a sudden, now we didn't have this big open space. It was divided by a bed space and a living space. And then we went to put the counters in, and it's like, oh God, now there's a very few little space for activities here now and stuff. So we're really happy with the amount of space we have in there, but it was a little bit of a change. Every single time we put a structure in, I could see it in your face. You weren't sure that you were happy with what we were doing.
I think the moment when it changed for me was when the kitchen counters went in.
Yeah, because it was just like such a nice, finished, polished piece of wood that went in there, and it's like, wow, this is like, now you start to see the quality of the finishing touches that we're going to be putting in this thing.
And the biggest thank you to our friend Taylor for spending countless hours after his job to do all of the woodwork for us. Yeah, they are stunning, and we never would have been able to do this. And
what is it? It's
walnut.
Walnut, yeah. It's nice Canadian dark walnut.
Stunning.
It's not even like, it's not stained. It's just it's kind of like got a treatment on it, but it's like the actual natural wood color that you get, that you are able to see there.
And he did the kitchen counter for us. He did the secondary counter for us that sits over top of where our toilet is. He did all of the cubby lids.
All on the side of the bed.
He framed the bed for us that we didn't have to show off the ugly wood that was holding our mattress in. I remember though, like when the counters went in, I was just like itching to put in the backsplash.
Yeah, in the sink and
in
everything.
the sink. I just like had to go so fast. But as soon as it all went in, we actually went out and took the van out for the first time to give it a test for my 30th birthday. Ontario was in lockdown, so there wasn't a lot to do, and I wasn't really allowed to see anybody. My parents came up, but we went out to some Crown land, and we just gave the van a test run for the evening, and it was really cool. We didn't have running water. We were
going on some really bumpy roads, and I think it was earlier that day we were actually grouting the backsplash, and I remember it said like, let's sit for 24 hours, and I'm thinking like, well, okay, we're going to take this on some bumpy roads and stuff, so hopefully this doesn't all fall down.
But I have to say that we have taken the van down some of the worst roads. I couldn't have even imagined taking the van down some of the roads that we went down this year, and nothing budged.
So throughout the whole build, we're both working full-time jobs basically, and then on top of that, I've been trying to get my pilot's license, my private pilot's license, and that seems to be like kind of the running joke of between us is how long it's taking, because I think I've been doing it for like 2 years now, pretty on and off thanks to COVID and everything. And I'm happy to say right now that I'm very, very close. We'll see in about a month from now if hopefully I'm actually holding a license in my hand. So then I think around May, just after Nicole's birthday, was the first time that I was actually flying on my own to another airport, and she was able to drive there and watch me land, which was so special for her to be able to see that. I feel like I've been flying for a few years, and Nicole still has not been able to go in a plane with me yet. So that's coming very soon, and that'll be a very exciting moment. But
stay tuned for 2022, Nicole's first flight with Chris.
Yeah, I was determined in 2021 by the end of this year I would be holding a pilot's license, but we'll give it another month. We'll blame COVID. So I think the next stage in the build was really like, we always had kind of these little deadlines that we were working towards, and this last deadline was the race to get everything finished so that Nicole could head west on her trip, because we had an install date set where we were actually going to get the roof rack installed. So we had to plan backwards so that Nicole is going to drive all the way to the west coast to get that done. And in order for that to happen, we had to have the toilet installed, we needed running water, and all of that was coming together in the last week or two.
At that point, we didn't have any drawers.
Yeah, there was like no drawers, no water.
So my dad came up during the week while Chris was at work, and we built all the drawers. We installed the Nature's Head toilet, and I think the only time I've ever seen you touch the toilet was the day when it was clean. When it installed.
When it was not used yet. Yeah. That was the only time that I was really getting in there.
And you will never touch the toilet again.
Yeah.
But we also got running water. The plumbing was such a huge moment for us.
Yeah, and that was something that I was like, okay, well, could try to do ourselves, but it was really nice to leverage Chris with Hudvin Mechanical to be able to just get that all done in like an hour.
He was so fast. It would have taken us a week.
Oh yeah, and we would have wasted so much material and had to buy tools. So,
and I think like literally we came down to the wire. Chris decided that we needed a third battery to successfully get our air conditioner to properly run while I headed out on my trip.
About like 4 days before you left, and
you sourced out, I think, the last battery to be found in Canada.
Yeah, of these Victron smart batteries, which were in such high demand, and we managed to get it in. I think it arrived about an hour before you left.
The battery arrived. You installed it.
Yeah, I had all the wiring pre-done, so I could like try to just attach that battery as soon as it arrived. But I think I was looking, and they're each 200 amp hours. And 400 amp hours was cutting it a little bit close when I thought about, running it on some hot nights and stuff. So 600 amp hours really gave us that buffer we needed. And I'd say that put us in that sweet spot of having a perfect battery capacity for the van that we built out. So
absolutely. So as soon as that battery, like the last, bolt was tightened, dog went in the van. Crystal and I closed the doors. We said goodbye, and we were going to see Chris 2 weeks later as Crystal and I spent 5,000 kilometers crossing the country, going through all of central and western Canada to end up in Vancouver.
Yeah. And so that was the real test. That was like, that's when things became real. It's like, we've built all this out now. Okay, how is it going to stand up on a road test?
Then we got to get into the fun part.
Yeah, going and actually experiencing what it's like to be in van life and traveling around in something like this.
So you landed, and the next day was the roof rack install.
And that's when the van started really looking less like an Amazon delivery van and something that looks really cool on the road. So
yeah, and we Stoked Adventure Outfitters did such an incredible job. They installed the roof rack, they installed a ladder on the side of the van, as well as running step boards for us, and I think the van looks sweet now.
Yeah, that's the moment when other vans that are on the road started piecing as they went by, because they actually could recognize as we were driving up that we're a camper van. So
yeah.
It's like a Jeep wave. There's also a van wave.
So we spent the next 4 weeks on the road exploring BC and the beautiful mountain ranges they had. We kind of were consistently 2 days ahead of the wildfires that were taking over the West Coast, sadly.
Good timing that we were
perfectly
able to
good timing.
get through there and didn't get stuck.
Yeah, we went through Banff, blew home through Saskatchewan and Manitoba because we just didn't have the time to spend it everywhere, so we chose to do it on the West Coast, knowing that we will cross the country again. Once we got back from the West Coast, I kind of continued to stay on the road, whether I was living in the van for weddings around Ontario. I went out and rented a Karma camper van in Banff, and then I popped up to the Yukon for another elopement.
Just been everywhere. And we were supposed to get married this year, but COVID.
So we decided we needed to take a trip at least over our wedding date. So we decided to go to the east coast of Canada because the Atlantic bubble finally had opened.
Yeah, so we headed all the way out east, so the vans spanned the entire stretch of the entire country, and the dog went that entire route as well.
We did PEI, we did Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. We got stuck in a hurricane.
Yep. Well,
that was a crazy day.
Where the roads were closed in some spots.
The roads were flooding, but the van stayed dry.
Yep.
We had no leaks. And when we came home, we decided it was time to get some new tires.
Yeah, and those tires look awesome. Like, we went with the biggest tires that we could put on there without making too many modifications, and not having any kind of issues with turning radius of the steering of whatever the axle and everything. And then
we put the spare
rims.
Tire on. Oh yeah, the Rhino rims. And then we put a spare tire on the back, like my Jeep Wrangler, with a ladder going up the back side. And I think the van looks sweet.
Yeah, and the big part for me was the suspension work that we did, because all the way when we put all this weight into the van, I always could kind of see it was leaning back a little bit on the backside, and I just think that it's not standing the way that it did when it came from the factory. Yeah. So putting in the suspension, it looks amazing now that it has a proper stance. It's
back to where it was when we bought it.
We've got the clearance that we need underneath.
And once that was all done, I jumped on a plane for my first international trip, and I went to Iceland for a month. I went over there for a workshop, and then Crystal joined me again for a different van adventure in Iceland, and I made it home just in time for the holidays. We got to spend some time with our friends and family, and we'll give you a quick little view of what the holidays looked like for us.
So I think when we look back at this entire build, though, it was a lot of work, a lot of evenings, and the after work kind of just going and working in the dark. And the hardest part was actually the setup every day. I think it would have made a huge difference if we had like a garage that the van was always just parked in, and we could leave all of our tools set up. But every day we had to pull the table saw out, pull everything out. But it wouldn't have been possible without all the help of like everyone that came out to help us, whether it was my dad, my mom, your parents, Darren, Taylor and Emma. Like, there was just so many people that came out to help, and that's what made it all possible to be able to get it all done by June June.
Yeah, and we are forever grateful for everybody that gave us emotional support, physical support, just all the support. We probably would still be building.
Yeah.
That is all of 2021. Well, a lot of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's been a crazy year, a fun year. There's so many things that we've accomplished, and we're looking forward to next year.
I still can't believe you let me buy a van.
I can't believe it either.
This has been the best year of my life.
But now she's talking about building another van, and that makes my head go. So I don't think that's going to be happening.
Not yet. No, not yet. I'm just when we have to do the next van.
Yeah. We'll see. Maybe we'll have someone build the next van, but we'll enjoy this one for as long as we can.
So as we say goodbye to 2021, we welcome 2022. And we have a lot of big adventures heading our way.
Yeah, and our plan is probably in a few days, we're going to go and try to take the van out to our first winter camping trip and see what it's like out in the snow and how the heater works and what it's like to do van life in the winter.
If you are not already subscribed to our channel, we would absolutely love it. It helps us grow. So please give us a thumbs up. Leave a comment below about anything you loved about the van build or a paw. And we will see you next week.
In the new year.
In the new year, in the van. Happy New Year, everybody. Hope everyone had a great holidays, and we will see you very soon.
Ciao.
Bye.
But like, I would totally put a GoPro